Stay with your buddies, she reminded them, as 40 children poured from the buses into the open fields of the nature preserve. Tay and his friend June raced ahead, their laughter carried away by the gentle breeze that rustled through the tall grass. I bet we can find tadpoles in that stream. June pointed to a glimmering ribbon of water cutting through the meadow. Tay nodded eagerly. Let's check it out after lunch. The class spent the morning collecting leaf samples and identifying local birds. When midday came, they spread blankets across the ground and opened their packed lunches. Tay finished his kimbap quickly, then nudged Jun. Ready to find those tadpoles? Jun looked hesitant. Ms. Kim said not to wander off. We won't go far, Tay promised. Just to the edge of the stream and back, 5 minutes. Jun reluctantly agreed, and the boys slipped away while their teacher was helping another student with a spilled drink. The stream was closer than it appeared, its waters clear and inviting. Tay knelt at the edge, peering into the shallows for signs of life. That's when it happened. A strange humming filled the air, like the buzz of 1,000 bees. The sky directly above Tay shimmered oddly, as though the air itself was bending. Jun stepped back in alarm, but before he could call out, a beam of pale blue light surrounded Tay. In the space between one heartbeat and the next, Tay simply vanished, leaving nothing behind but his empty water bottle. June's screams brought the teachers running, but there was no trace of Tay to be found. Miles above Earth's surface, Tay lay unconscious on a smooth metal floor as two beings moved around him, their 6-fingered hands adjusting various instruments that blinked and chirped. "Specimen secured, Dune," said the taller of the two, its voice a series of clicks and whistles that their translation devices rendered into understandable language. "Excellent work, Mook," replied the second alien, this one with skin that shifted, between shades of green and blue like a living mood ring. The juvenile Nexian appears to be in perfect condition. The research vessel. Collector hummed quietly as it pulled away from Earth's orbit, its cloaking systems preventing detection by the primitive radar systems the aliens believed were humanity's best technology. Inside the ship's laboratory, Mook and Dune carefully transferred Tay to what they designed as a perfect habitat for a child from Nexus 3. The atmosphere mix is correct? Dune double-checked the readouts. Yes, and I've added the proper soil composition, blue just like their native terrain. Mook gestured proudly to the enclosure where they'd placed Tay. I even painted 3 moons on the ceiling to make it feel like home. The habitat was roughly the size of a small apartment, with strange blue-tinged soil covering the floor. Plants with bulbous purple leaves sat in various corners, and a small pool of thick, jelly-like liquid occupied one corner, what the aliens believed was the typical drinking source for Nexian children. The walls were transparent from the outside, but appeared solid from within, allowing the scientists to observe without being seen. "When will it wake?" Dune asked, adjusting the recording equipment. "Soon. The stasis beam effects wear off quickly. Kin juveniles." Sure enough, within an hour, Tay began to stir. His eyes fluttered open, confusion immediately washing over his face as he took in the strange surroundings. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes as if hoping the unusual environment would disappear. "Hello?" he called out, his voice steady despite the fear that must have been coursing through him. "Is anyone there?" Mook and Dune watched with interest, noting his reactions in their datapads. Immediate vocalization, Mook noted. Earlier than expected. For a Nexian child. Tay stood up and began exploring his enclosure, touching the strange plants and examining the walls. Finding no door, he returned to the center and began gathering materials, pulling off a leaf here, scooping up some of the blue soil there. Within 20 minutes, to the aliens' astonishment, Tay had fashioned a crude tool from plant stems, hand-hardened soil. He used it to test the strength of different sections of the wall, methodically searching for weaknesses. This isn't right," Dune whispered, checking their reference materials. "Nexian children don't show tool-making abilities until near maturity. Perhaps this specimen is older than it appears," Mook suggested, though uncertainty crept into their voice. They watched in growing confusion as Tay, finding no escape, began organizing the habitat. He created a sleeping area, a place to store the strange food packets they'd left, and what appeared to be a defensive barrier using the larger plants. Look at its problem-solving capabilities. Dune pointed to the screen. The logical sequencing of tasks. This exceeds all our data on Nexian development. Mook zoomed in on Tay's face, noting the determination in his eyes. Perhaps we should run additional scans. Something feels different about this specimen, as the alien scientists conferred nervously. Tay sat in his makeshift shelter, eyes alert and mind racing. He might be just 8 years old, but he knew one thing for certain. He was far from home, and whoever had taken him had made a very big mistake. 3 days had passed since Tay's abduction, and the research vessel Collector pushed smoothly through the dark emptiness of space. Stars streaked past the small viewports like falling snow as the ship continued its journey toward the central research base. Inside his habitat, Tay sat cross-legged on the floor, watching a holographic display that Mook had placed in his enclosure. Strange symbols floated in the air, changing colors when Tay touched them. What the aliens didn't realize was that their simple language learning program was being mastered by the boy at an astonishing rate. "He's completed level 7 already," Dune said, tapping the observation window with one long finger. "That's nearly twice as fast as our projections for a Nexian child." Mook nodded, making notes on a transparent tablet. "The specimen shows extraordinary pattern recognition. Perhaps we should increase the difficulty." In the habitat, Tay pressed his palm against one of the symbols, turning it from green to gold. A soft chime indicated he'd made another correct match. The boy allowed himself a small smile. He might be scared, but he wasn't going to show it. Dad always said when you're in trouble, you need to keep your head clear and learn everything you can. "Time for the physical assessment," Mook announced, pressing a series of buttons on the control panel. A portion of the habitat wall slid open, revealing a small chamber. Curious but cautious, Tay approached the opening. Inside was what looked like exercise equipment, strange contraptions with pulleys and resistance bands. "Please enter testing chamber," said a robotic voice in the alien's language. Thanks to 3 days of intense study, Tay understood enough to comply. The tests began simply. Lift this, pull that, run in place. But they quickly became more challenging. Weights increased, speeds doubled, endurance trials stretched longer. Tay pushed himself harder with each new challenge, his small body adapting to demands that would have exhausted a child from Nexus 3. Behind the observation glass, Dune's eyes widened. "The strength readings? They're off our charts for a juvenile." "Impossible," Mook muttered, recalibrating the equipment, but the readings remained the same. Could their home environment be more demanding than our research indicated? What the aliens failed to understand was that Earth's stronger gravity and diverse environmental challenges had shaped human evolution differently. Tay's muscles, bones, and reflexes had developed under conditions that made him naturally more resilient than the children of Nexus 3rd, who evolved on a world with lighter gravity and fewer physical demands. Enough physical testing for today, Mook decided, noticing Tay's heavy breathing. Let's proceed with the environmental adaptability exam. A fine mist filled the testing chamber, containing harmless microbes that would typically cause minor respiratory reactions in Nexian children, a standard test of immune response. To their surprise, Tay showed no distress at all. His immune system destroyed the foreign microbes with remarkable efficiency. The morning sun had just begun to peek over the hills as Tay's class gathered excitedly near the buses. The 8-year-old boy adjusted his backpack straps, barely able to contain his excitement about the countryside field trip. Their teacher, Ms. Kim, counted heads one final time before they departed from Seoul Elementary School. His biological defenses are extraordinarily robust, Dune observed, comparing Tay's readings to their baseline data. Nothing like what we expected. As days turned into a week aboard the Collector, Tay continued to surprise his captors. He'd learned to communicate in basic phrases of their language, constructed a better sleeping mat from the materials in his habitat, and spent hours observing the aliens through the walls he knew were transparent from their side. Then came the radiation burst, an unexpected solar flare from a nearby star that the ship's shields only partially deflected. Warning alarms blared as elevated radiation levels were detected throughout the specimen deck. "Check all habitats!" shouted the ship's captain over the communication system. Report any affected specimens immediately. Mook rushed to monitor the life signs of all the collected specimens. The readings weren't good. Most of the smaller creatures showed signs of radiation sickness. Even the more resilient specimens were displaying elevated stress markers. But when Mook checked Tay's readings, the boy's vital signs remained stable and strong. "Dune, come look at this," Mook called, confusion evident in their voice. "The human specimen shows no adverse effects whatsoever." "That's not possible," Dune replied, hurrying over. "The radiation levels should at least cause minor cellular damage." Yet Tay sat calmly in his habitat, continuing with the language lessons as if nothing had happened. Unknown to the aliens, Earth's ozone layer had thinned during Tay's lifetime, and humans had adapted to handle higher UV radiation. His cells contained natural repair mechanisms, far more effective than those of Nexian children. The ship's senior researcher, Rin, joined them at the monitoring station. Tall and thin with scales that shimmered like oil on water, Rin had decades, more experience than either Mook or Dune. "Show me all the data you've collected on this specimen," Rin demanded, eyes narrowing as they reviewed the findings. "There's something not right here." Later that day, disaster struck the specimen deck. The automated food dispensing system malfunctioned, leaving all the captured creatures without nutrition. Technicians worked frantically to repair the complex machinery, but estimated it would take at least a day to fix. "We'll have to distribute emergency rations manually," Rin ordered, clearly frustrated by this complication. When they reached Tay's habitat, they found something unexpected. The small access port where food packets were normally delivered had been partially disassembled from the inside. Tay had somehow removed the inner panel and was examining the wiring and mechanisms behind it. "What is it doing?" Dune asked, alarmed that their specimen had tampered with ship systems. They watched in astonishment as Tay methodically reconnected several wires, bypassed a damaged circuit, and reassembled the delivery system using only the basic materials from his habitat. When he pressed the final component back into place, the food dispenser hummed back to life, depositing a fresh packet into his habitat. That's impossible," Mook whispered. "The technical understanding required to repair that system. A Nexian adult would struggle with it, let alone a child." Rin stood silently, watching Tay take the food packet and return to his sleeping area. After a long moment, the senior researcher spoke. "I believe we may have made a critical identification error," Rin said quietly. "This is no Nexian child. We need to re-examine all our data and determine exactly what species we're dealing with." As the three aliens walked away, deep in worried conversation, Tay took a small bite of his food. He'd seen enough of their ship systems now to understand the basics of how everything worked. Knowledge was power, his teachers always said, and with each passing day, his power was growing. The massive space station hung against the backdrop of twin purple suns, its curved metal arms extending like the petals of a flower. Science Station 6 was the pride of the Galactic Research Council, home to the brightest scientific minds from over 40 star systems. As the collector approached, its engines humming softly, Tay pressed his face against the small viewport. In his habitat, eyes wide with wonder at the enormous structure. "We're docking in 10 minutes, announced the ship's captain over the intercom. "All research staff prepare specimen reports for transfer and evaluation." Mook hurried around Tay's habitat, gathering data tablets and biological samples. The aliens' usually calm demeanor had given way to nervous energy, ever since Rin had questioned their identification of Tay. "Everything must be perfect for lead researcher Sul," Dune muttered, checking the security settings on Tay's habitat for the third time. "She rarely leaves her private laboratory to examine specimens personally." Tay pretended not to understand their conversation, but after 2 weeks aboard the ship, he comprehended far more of their language than they realized. He had learned that this Sul person was important, perhaps the most important scientist on the entire station, and she wanted to see him specifically. With a gentle shudder, the collector docked at the station. Tay felt a slight change in gravity as the station's systems took over. His habitat module was disconnected from the ship's main systems and loaded onto a hovering transport platform. Through the walls, he could see long corridors filled with aliens of different shapes and sizes, all wearing similar uniforms marked with scientific insignia. The transport glided smoothly through the station until it reached a large, circular laboratory. Unlike the sterile white of the ship, this room was filled with plants, holographic displays, and complex equipment. In the center stood a tall, slender alien with silver-gray skin and 4 arms, each moving independently as she adjusted settings on various instruments. Lead researcher Sul, Mook said with a respectful bow. We present the juvenile specimen from our Nexus 3rd expedition. Sul turned, her large eyes, entirely black with no visible pupils, focusing intently on Tay's habitat. Without acknowledging Mook or Dune, she approached the transparent wall and studied Tay carefully. Remove the privacy shields, she ordered. I want to see it clearly. The habitat walls became fully transparent, leaving Tay feeling exposed as dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. He stood tall, chin up, the way his mother had taught him when facing something scary. Hello, Tay said clearly in their language, causing several of the junior researchers to gasp. Sul's expression remained unchanged. It speaks our language already. Interesting. She turned to Mook. Your preliminary report mentioned unusual cognitive and physical capabilities. Show me your data. For the next hour, Mook and Dune presented their findings, while Sul observed Tay through the clear walls. They displayed charts showing his rapid language acquisition, physical strength, tests, and radiation resistance. All the while, Tay sat cross-legged on the floor watching everything, memorizing the layout of the laboratory and the locations of all the doors. Finally, Sul held up one hand for silence. I require a direct biological assessment. Prepare the specimen for examination. 2 assistants approached Tay's habitat with what looked like protective suits and breathing apparatus. A small door opened in the wall. Please put on this safety equipment, one assistant said in simple words, clearly assuming Tay wouldn't understand complex instructions. Tay complied, allowing them to help him into the suit that was slightly too big for his small frame. Once sealed inside, he was led from the habitat into the main laboratory. The gravity felt strange, lighter than Earth but heavier than on the ship, and he took a moment to adjust his balance. Sul towered over him, her 4 arms moving constantly, taking measurements, collecting samples of his hair and skin cells, scanning him with handheld devices. Despite feeling like a science project, Tay remained calm, answering simple questions when asked, following instructions carefully. Remarkable pain tolerance, Sul noted when she took a blood sample, as Tay didn't even flinch. What she didn't know was that Tay had received plenty of shots at his regular doctor visits back home, and his mother had always praised his bravery. After the examination, Tay was returned to his habitat, while Sul analyzed the collected data. Through the walls, he could see her growing more agitated as she reviewed the results, her movements becoming more rapid, her voice raising as she spoke to her assistants. Impossible, she muttered, running tests again. These markers cannot be correct. Finally, Sul gathered all the research team in the center of the laboratory. Tay strained to hear their conversation. The specimen you have brought me, Sul began, her voice deadly serious, is not from Nexus 3. Mook stepped forward, confusion evident, but our scans indicated... Your scans were incomplete, Sul cut in sharply. This child is human, from Earth. The laboratory erupted in chaos. Junior researchers gasped, senior scientists began arguing loudly, and Mook looked as though they might faint. Earth is classified as forbidden under Galactic Council Directive 5591, one scientist shouted over the din. No research vessels are authorized to approach within 1 light-year. The penalty for unauthorized contact is severe, another added, let alone abduction. Of a native, Sul raised all 4 arms, commanding silence. Worse than the regulations, she said gravely, is what we know about humans themselves. The room grew quiet as Sul activated a large holographic display. Images appeared showing humans in various activities, building cities, exploring oceans, launching primitive space vehicles. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world with extreme environmental variations, Sul explained. Their physical adaptability is unmatched in the charted galaxy, but more concerning is their psychological makeup. New images appeared, Human parents shielding children from danger, rescue workers running into burning buildings, soldiers defending civilians. No species we have encountered is more protective of their young, Sewell continued. Their entire social structure revolves around nurturing and defending their offspring. There are documented cases of average humans lifting vehicles weighing tons when their children are trapped beneath. Surely those are exaggerations, Dune said weakly. They are. Not, Sewell replied. Furthermore, humans possess unusual intelligence combined with remarkable tenacity. When they perceive a threat to their young, they do not stop, they do not negotiate, they do not surrender. The implications hung heavy in the air. Tay listened carefully, a small smile forming on his lips as he heard these aliens speak of humans with such awe and fear. We must return this child immediately, Rin suggested. Before the humans discover. It may already be too late, Sewell interrupted. We don't know how long they've been tracking us. While the aliens argued about their next steps, Tay turned his attention to a small panel in the corner of his habitat. 3 days earlier, he had discovered that one section of wall contained maintenance access to the habitat's environmental controls. Behind that panel, he had found something even more valuable, a data terminal. Each night, while the night shift, researchers paid less attention, Tay had carefully removed the panel and explored the alien computer system. Though much of it remained beyond his understanding, he had managed to access basic station schematics and communication protocols. Now, as the scientists debated his fate, Tay slipped back to that hidden corner, removed the panel, and connected to the system once more. This time he found what he'd been searching for, external communication channels. With careful movements he had practiced dozens of times, Tay input a sequence of commands. He didn't need to send a complex message, just a simple signal, broadcasting. His location on frequencies, he discovered the station used for emergency beacons. As the signal began transmitting, Tay replaced the panel and returned to the center of his habitat. Through the transparent walls, he could see Sewell still lecturing the research team about the dangerous mistake they had made. They had no idea just how right she was. 3 weeks had passed since Ty vanished from the countryside field trip on Earth, in an underground facility buried deep beneath a mountain range. A team of technicians monitored an enormous wall of screens. This wasn't a publicly known installation. No press conferences had announced its creation. No budget approvals had gone through normal channels. The Sentinel program existed in the shadows, known only to a handful of world leaders and the dedicated staff who worked there. Signal confirmed, announced a young woman with short black hair, her fingers flying across a holographic keyboard. We've got a location fix on the beacon. Across the room, Director Park looked up sharply from the report he'd been reviewing. For 20 days they had been tracking the alien vessel that took Tay, watching as it traveled far beyond what most humans believed was the reach of Earth technology. Put it on the main display, Park ordered, his voice calm despite the tension, visible in his shoulders. The center screen changed to show a 3-dimensional map of distant space. A blinking red dot appeared, surrounded by technical data, coordinates, distance measurements, and signal strength indicators. Science Station 6, read the communications officer. It matches the layout in our archives. Park nodded grimly. Few people on Earth knew the truth. That alien observation of their planet had been detected years ago. A crashed surveillance probe discovered in the Arctic had yielded technological secrets that changed everything. Earth had been listening, watching and learning from the shadows while appearing primitive to outside observers. The signal is definitely from Ty, confirmed the lead technician. It contains the personal identifier code embedded in his school ID chip. Park straightened his uniform and pressed a button on his wrist communicator. Prepare the response team. Operation Shepherd is now active. Deep beneath the ocean floor, in hangars built where no civilian sonar could detect them, 3 sleek vessels hummed to life. Unlike the bulky rockets the public believed represented the pinnacle of human space technology, these ships featured smooth, dark hulls that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Technology reverse-engineered from alien designs, combined with human innovation, had produced spacecraft that could traverse vast distances through folded space, Captain Yoon reviewed the mission parameters one final time with her crew. 24 of Earth's most skilled pilots, engineers, and tactical specialists had trained for years for this possibility, the recovery of a human abducted by extraterrestrial entities. "This isn't a diplomatic mission," she reminded her team, her experienced eyes meeting each of theirs in turn. "This is a rescue operation. We bring Tay home no matter what." Within the hour, the 3 vessels, Shepherd 1, 2, and 3, emerged from the ocean depths and accelerated upward, through the atmosphere. To anyone watching from the ground, they would have appeared as nothing more than brief flashes of light, easily dismissed as shooting stars or atmospheric phenomena. Once beyond Earth's gravitational pull, the ships activated their fold space drives. The stars around them stretched into lines of light before the darkness of space was replaced by the swirling blue-purple energies of the dimensional corridor. Meanwhile, on Science Station 6, lead researcher Sul had called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Research Council's local representatives. 7 aliens of different species gathered in the primary conference chamber, their expressions grave as Sul explained the situation. "We have inadvertently taken a human child," she concluded, displaying Tay's biological scans. The ship's crew believed they were collecting a Nexian juvenile, but this DNA profile is unmistakably human. "How could such a mistake occur?" demanded Councillor Paz, his leaf-like appendages quivering with concern. "Earth is clearly marked as prohibited in all star charts." "The collection team used outdated classification data," Sul admitted. "And the child was found far from major human settlements." Councillor Vril tapped a nervous rhythm with her 3-fingered hand. "We must return the human immediately and hope their primitive detection systems never noticed the collection vessel." "Preparations are already underway," Sul assured them. "Their high-speed transport is being—" The station's alarm system suddenly erupted in a cacophony of blaring horns and flashing lights. Red emergency indicators bathed the room in an ominous glow. "Security breach," announced the station's automated system. Unknown vessels detected in proximity to the station, no identification signals received. The conference room's main screen activated automatically, showing 3 dark ships emerging from what appeared to be self-generated fold space portals, technology the Galactic Council believed was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. "Impossible," whispered Councillor Paz. The largest of the unidentified vessels moved into position directly before the station. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then a transmission cut through all communication channels, overriding the station's security. "Protocols with ease. Attention Science Station 6, came a clear human voice, transmitted simultaneously in Earth languages and surprisingly accurate translations in all known galactic dialects. "This is Captain Yoon of Earth Defense Vessel Shepherd 1. You have abducted a human child from our planet. Return him immediately and unharmed." The council members stared at each other in shock. How could humans have developed such advanced technology without detection? How could they have tracked the child across vast distances of space? Sul moved quickly to the communication panel. "This is lead researcher Sul. There has been a regrettable misunderstanding. We are preparing to return the human child." Captain Yoon's voice cut through again, firm and unwavering. "You have 1 hour to complete the transfer. Any delay will be considered hostile action." Throughout the station, researchers and support staff rushed to emergency positions. Security teams moved toward defensive stations, while administrators attempted to contact the Galactic Council Central Authority for instructions. In his habitat, Tay felt the familiar vibration of his rescue beacon being answered. The signal had worked. Now it was time for the next part of his plan. With practiced movements, he slipped back to the hidden panel and removed it once more. This time, instead of just accessing the computer terminal, he reached further into the wall cavity to where he'd discovered the habitat's door control mechanism. Over the past days, he had carefully studied how it worked, using the knowledge he'd gained from watching the aliens operate similar systems. As alarms continued to blare throughout the station, Tay connected 2 critical circuits, bypassing the security protocol. With a soft hiss, the habitat door slid open. Freedom Tay stepped cautiously into the laboratory. now empty as all personnel had rushed to emergency stations. On a nearby counter, he spotted something useful, a data tablet the researchers used to record observations. He grabbed it, quickly navigating to the station schematics he'd memorized during his late-night explorations of the system. The main docking bay was 3 levels down. That's where the Earth ships would connect to the station. That's where he needed to go. Moving quietly through the corridors, Tay used the confusion of the emergency to his advantage. Aliens rushed past without noticing the small human child, pressing himself into alcoves or slipping into service tunnels. The station's artificial gravity felt strange beneath his feet, making each step lighter than it would be on Earth, allowing him to move quickly and quietly. At one junction, he nearly ran directly into Mook and Dune, who were hurrying toward. "The research wing. The habitat alarm has activated," Dune was saying frantically. "The specimen has escaped." "How could it operate the security systems?" Mook replied. "It's just a child." Tay smiled to himself as he ducked into a maintenance shaft. These aliens still didn't understand humans very well, especially human children, who spent their free time taking apart and reassembling computers for fun. As he made his way toward the docking bay, Tay could hear the growing panic in the voices around him. Announcements echoed through the station in multiple languages, ordering all personnel to secure areas and prepare for possible emergency protocols. What none of them yet realized was that humans hadn't just been sitting idly by while alien probes studied their world. Earth had been watching right back, learning, preparing, and nothing, absolutely nothing, would stop them from recovering one of their children. The main docking bay of Science Station 6 had never been so tense. 2 lines formed on opposite sides of the vast chamber. On one side stood the station's security forces, their uniforms pristine but their postures betraying their nervousness. Opposite them waited the hastily assembled welcoming committee of scientists and administrators, including Sol, Mook, and Dune. In the center stood Councillor Paz, who had been urgently appointed as diplomatic representative for this unprecedented situation. A soft hiss announced the pressurization of the airlock. Everyone held their breath as the massive doors slowly parted. Commander Han stepped through first, her Earth Defense Force uniform fitting perfectly to her tall, athletic frame. Behind her followed 11 other humans in similar dark uniforms, their faces composed but alert, hands resting casually near holstered weapons that the station's sensors couldn't identify. The aliens noted with surprise that these humans moved with practiced ease in the station's artificial gravity, as though they had trained for this environment. "Welcome to Science Station 6, Councillor Paz began, his voice betraying a slight tremor. "We deeply regret the misunderstanding that—" "Where is the boy?" Commander Han interrupted, her voice calm but carrying an unmistakable edge of steel. Before Paz could answer, the sound of running footsteps echoed from a side corridor. Every head turned to see Tai sprinting into the docking bay, his face lighting up with joy when he spotted the Earth delegation. "Mom, Dad!" he shouted, rushing toward 2 of the uniformed humans. The woman, Lieutenant Kang, dropped to one knee, opening her arms as Tay crashed into her embrace. The man, Major Lee, joined them, wrapping his arms around his wife and son, his face a mixture of relief and barely contained fury. "Are you hurt?" Lieutenant Kang asked, checking Tay for injuries. "I'm okay, Mom," Tay assured her. "I knew you'd come." "Of course we came," Major Lee said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "We will always come for you." The aliens watched this reunion with a mixture of scientific curiosity and growing unease. The protective instinct they'd documented in humans was playing out before their eyes. But coupled with technology and military precision, they'd never suspected humans possessed. Commander Han allowed the family a moment before turning back to face the alien delegation. "Sayu took a child from our world," she stated, each word precise and measured. "A direct violation of our sovereignty." Sol stepped forward. "It was a terrible error in classification. We believed the child was from Nexus 3, a world open to our research programs. We never intended—" "Yet you kept him for weeks after you discovered the truth," Commander Han noted. "Your biological scans confirmed his human DNA days ago." The aliens exchanged nervous glances. "How could the humans know such specific details?" "We monitored all your communications once our ships came within range," Commander Han explained, answering their unspoken question. "Just as we've been monitoring your observation satellites around our planet for the past 15 years, a wave of shock rippled through the alien delegation. 15 years? Humans had detected their stealth technology that long ago? Impossible, muttered one of the senior researchers. Their detection capabilities were assessed as primitive. Commander Han's lips curved in a small, cold smile. We found it beneficial to maintain that impression. The implications hung in the air like a physical weight. Humanity hadn't just noticed they were being watched. They had deliberately hidden their technological advancement while studying the Watchers in return. Councillor Paz cleared his throat nervously. We understand your anger, Commander. The Galactic Council will offer appropriate reparations for this unfortunate incident. Reparations are not what we seek, Commander Han replied. We want recognition. With a gesture to one of her team, a holographic projector activated in the center of the docking bay. A three-dimensional image of Earth rotated slowly before them, surrounded by data points marking the locations of the alien observation satellites. For centuries, you've studied us like specimens in a zoo, Commander Han continued. That ends. Today. Earth is not a research subject. We are your equals, the assembled aliens murmured among themselves. The Galactic Council had strict protocols for first contact with developing worlds, typically waiting until a species achieved independent fold space travel before initiating formal relations. But this species had beaten them to it, using technology. They'd reverse-engineered from Council designs. What exactly are you proposing? Councillor Paz asked cautiously. Formal diplomatic relations, Commander Han stated. Earth will send representatives to your Galactic Council, and in return, your representatives will be welcomed on Earth, openly, not hiding behind stealth technology and abducting our children. The word abducting caused several aliens to flinch visibly. There are conditions, Commander Han continued. First, all observation satellites around Earth will be removed immediately. Any future scientific studies must receive prior approval from our government. Second, all data collected on humans without our consent will be shared with us in full. And third, here she paused, looking directly at Sul, you will update your galactic database to reflect the truth about humanity. Sul nodded slowly. What designation would you suggest, Commander? The truth, Commander Han replied simply, that we are an advanced civilization with exceptional protective capabilities, particularly regarding our children. That direct diplomatic approach is required for all contact, and that we are absolutely not suitable for any specimen collection program. Tay, still standing between his parents, couldn't help but smile at the looks on the aliens' faces. They finally understood what they'd stumbled into when they took him. Councillor Paz conferred briefly with his colleagues before turning back to the humans. The terms you propose are acceptable. I will communicate them to the Galactic Council. Immediately. Good, Commander Han nodded. Our ships will remain in position until we receive formal confirmation. As the diplomatic discussions continued, Tay looked up at his father. How did you find me so quickly? He whispered. Major Lee crouched down to his son's level. The beacon in your school ID chip helped, but honestly, we were tracking the alien ship from the moment it entered Earth's atmosphere. We've had contingency plans for something like this for years. Your father means we were ready, Lieutenant Kang added softly, brushing Tay's hair from his forehead. But we were terrified every second you were gone. Across the room, Liad researcher. Sol observed the human family with newfound understanding. She activated her data tablet and began updating the galactic database entry for Earth and humans. Under notable characteristics, she added a new primary designation. Technologically innovative species with extraordinary parental protection instincts. Their advancement rate exceeds standard developmental models. Approach with diplomatic respect. As she completed the entry, Sul added one final note, marked for emphasis across all Galactic Council research divisions. Warning, do not underestimate. Humans will cross galaxies to protect their young. On the Earth vessels preparing for their return journey, Tay sat in the command center of Shepard 1, watching with wide eyes as the crew operated technology that most people on Earth didn't know existed. Commander Han approached smiling as she handed him a small medallion. "For exceptional bravery," she said. "Not many 8-year-olds could have kept their wits while being studied by aliens." Tay grinned, turning the medallion over in his hand. "I just remembered what my teacher always says. When you're somewhere new, pay attention and learn everything you can." "Good advice," Commander Han nodded. "And what did you learn from all this?" Tay looked through the view screen at the alien, station growing smaller as Earth's ships prepared to depart. "I learned that even when the universe is bigger than you thought, home will always find you." As the Earth vessels activated their fold space drives, rippling the fabric of reality around them, the message was clear to all watching aliens. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not through invitation, but through their most fundamental quality, the unbreakable determination to protect their own.